Welcome to this episode of Estate Agency X. Today I'm talking to Peter Rollins, probably one of the most famous figures in UK estate agency. Peter has a background of working in the early stages of Foxtons, buying Marsh Parsons, building that up and selling it on, and he's got a great insight into some of the things that he did that made significant differences in the business and the way that he thinks the future of estate agency should work, and some things that you could perhaps implement in your estate agency to make the difference. Okay, Peter, thanks very much for coming in.
Pleasure.
Before we get into agreeing or disagreeing on the world of estate agency in the future, are you okay just to give us a brief background on yourself for anyone that's been living under a rock, doesn't know, your background, just fill people in?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Well, I left school at 18. Rather like you, I decided not to go to university. Crappy A-levels had something to do with that, but I'd spent my time trying to make some money and playing sport mainly. So I went to work for a very, very, very posh central London estate agent called Lane Fox. I was the only person there that hadn't been to Eton, and there were 6 of us. And I learned my trade for 3 years working in that environment, which was a very useful environment, but I was paid $4,250 a year, plus no commission.
Okay.
So my paycheck was £254 a month. So it was brutal. And then a mate of mine played squash with John Hunt, and in 1985, December, I joined Foxtons. So I went from working 9 till 5, 5 days a week, till 9 till 9, 7 days a week. It was an extraordinary business. It was the ultimate business set out to destroy the status quo. And we were extremely brutal, I suppose you'd say. We didn't take any prisoners, and we went out and we really dominated the market. The first time we did 0% in Fulham in 1985 when I joined, we got 390 instructions in 3 months, all at 0%. But then when we finished, they went to 2.5%, which, to be fair, in those days was more or less the average fee. 2 to 2.5% was what most agents charged. So I worked hard there. It was really hard. You either worked Saturday or Sunday until 9 o'clock every night. And I rose up and I took over the South Kensington office in about 1990 through that recession, which was a proper recession where literally nothing was happening. And we battled through that. And then in 97, I took over as MD when we had 10 offices, turning over about 10 million. And with a number of structures I introduced to the company with advice. It's, successful people don't do it all by themselves. Everyone knows that. I'm sure you know that. They listen to advice and they take the good advice and they ignore the bad advice. So with advice, I changed the structure to a very much time management structure. And the business grew to a turnover of 40 million in 2.5, 3 years with 2 more offices. Sure, the market was with us, but the structure of a call out for agents and making salespeople do not what they want to do, but what you want them to do is revolutionary. As far as I'm concerned, it is the holy grail to a sales type business. Then in 2004, I sort of got fed up with Foxtons. I was MD and had been for 7 years. I was sort of fallen out with John Hunt, who is a genius, an incredible man, but I didn't particularly appreciate some of the stuff that was going on. Anyway, and I bought Marsh Parsons. It was a very old-fashioned business. It was established in 1856. I have never seen anything as different to Foxtons when I walked in that door. It was completely unbelievable, shocking. I mentioned I didn't like some of the bits at Foxtons. I loved most of the bits at Foxtons, and that I introduced to the business. I got rid of the people that should be got rid of quickly. I took it over about 55 people, and within 6 months, I had about 7 or 8 of that original left.
Right.
I'm a big believer in you've got to have the right people on board. You can't carry passengers, only crew members. And so I did that very, very quickly. And we changed all sorts of stuff. We changed the way people were paid. We increased the fees. We started lettings in a big way. I got the right people in the right business, and we grew and we grew and we grew. We got through that disastrous 2007 to 2009, the most frightening stages of my life. I thought on many occasions we were going to go bust. And in 2011, I don't know if this is too slow or too fast, but in 2011, we sold it to LSL. I have a big saying in life: never look back. I wouldn't have chosen to sell it at that time, but my business partners who were Irish needed to and wanted to, and they did extremely well out of it. We sold at an amazing multiple of what we'd created, and I stayed on for 4 years until 2016. I didn't really enjoy working for a PLC. I thought it was very sort of anti-entrepreneurial as far as I was concerned. It was far too rigorous and based on numbers at the end of the year, as opposed to knowing what's the right thing to do and investing for the future. You know, if you're not going to get a payback by year-end numbers in a PLC, it's a tough investment to make, and I hate that. Business is all about longer-term views, in my view. If you want to really create value, that's what it's all about. And so I stepped back in 2016, and my timing was, by pure luck, incredibly right. We had obviously had Brexit, and we had the stamp duty issues in London, which destroyed the upper end of the market for a while. And since then, I have been investing in various businesses, small startups mainly, some of which have gone well and some of which haven't. And I recently, 2 years ago, actually went back on the board at Foxtons. I was invited to get back on the board at Foxtons and try and start the process of sorting out what was an absolute shit show.
How's that going?
It's going really well.
Good.
I mean, you know, if you know what you're doing, and I've been there 20 years, and you arrive and so much was wrong, it doesn't take a genius to work out what to change, who to get rid of, who to bring in. And Guy Gittins, who I employed at Foxtons and then we re-employed, is a genius as far as I'm concerned. I think he's fantastic. He's got get up and go. He's got spirit. He's got aggression, and you do need aggression in business. It has to be couched. It can't be outright aggression, but you have to really, really want to win, and he does. And the business has transformed.
Awesome. Wow, lots to unpack there. So I'm going to start right back at the beginning. You mentioned working with John at Foxtons, and you said that it was you guys were brutal. You know, I remember back then, like, you know, when Foxtons first arrived, and it was brutal for the sleepiest estate agents in the town. It was a massacre. So do you think that had something to do with, like, John's background was military, wasn't it?
Yeah, his father was in the army.
And do you think that sort of came through into the company in some way? Did you guys sort of have that culture?
He was an iconoclast. I've just read Elon Musk's book, and which, if you haven't read it, is, I think, inspirational stuff. Elon Musk is John times 10, but I can absolutely see the unbelievable focus on how and what to do beyond anything else. So he was so focused on changing the business and changing the industry. We could all see, frankly, that agents who were pretty much ex-public school, ex-army, working 9 till 5 and not opening on Saturdays was never going to make money. I was the only person in Lane Fox who didn't have a private income.
Right.
So, you know, it was in the Stone Age as far as I was concerned. And I'm a fairly punchy, I won't say aggressive, but I'm extremely competitive, annoyingly so at some times. So I love that sort of stuff. And I could see that Foxtons was changing the world of estate agency, and I wanted to be a part of it. And I had an ulcer in 3 months at working, so it was incredibly stressful. But I'd learned all the sort of soft stuff at Lane Fox. It was brilliant, but I learned the real hard stuff about what works and what doesn't in my early days and my days at Foxtons.
Obviously, the Foxtons stuff, you know, you've explained where that went and went to Marsh Parsons and built that business. So what made you decide to buy Marsh Parsons if you probably already knew that you were going to have to remove most of their staff? Like, what was it about Marsh Parsons that was appealing to you, that if you were going to change the entire company?
Well, I'll step back one step from there, which is Foxtons certainly was and arguably is a cult. You are in Foxtons and you are like this.
Yeah.
There is nowhere else you should go because everyone else is shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, as I said, I was getting a bit fed up. So I flew to Australia actually to do a talk at something called the Principals Conference, which is organised by a guy called John McGrath, who runs McGrath Estate Agents. And quite by chance, sitting in the audience was a chap called Mark Fitzgerald, who is the biggest estate agent in Ireland, Sherry Fitzgerald. And I talked for 2 hours on the Foxtons culture and the Foxtons brand, 2 hours on each. And he came up to me afterwards and said, Peter, that was great. You're nice. Why aren't you doing it for yourself? And I mentioned the cult. I had no sort of concept that I could do this at all, because I was working in the machine and I was running it, but I was working within it, and I was just so involved day and night in that business that I never lifted my head and said, what are you doing? So good and bad, because I learned my stuff over 20 years, but bad, potentially I should have done it 6 years before, but never looked back. So Mark said, well, let's buy something. And I'd had my eye on Marsh Parsons for a while. A guy called David Marshall, who owned it entirely. He was 72 years old. It had been sort of drifting along, but it had 7 offices, 6 in the Royal Borough of Kensington, Chelsea. It was dramatically underperforming. It was like a tweedy gentleman that needed a bit of sort of get up and go. But the brand was unsullied. Its position in the market was great. It was well regarded. It was liked but not needed. If you sort of mean. Everyone said, oh, Marsh and Parsons, aren't they lovely? And that's not what I wanted. I wanted to retain some of the loveliness, but people don't come to an agent because they're lovely. Hence, Marsh and Parsons didn't make any money. They come to it because they're lovely and they can deliver.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because people do go to an agent because they're lovely, but not enough of them.
No.
It's like, there are some people that will go, oh no, I like those people. And it's like, but there are not enough people.
But they're
like
useless.
That. That's right.
And so that's the big gap in the market. That's what I saw. I saw the market in three areas of.
So we want Marsh and Parsons, we just don't want the sleepy people.
Exactly. You see the Foxtons, which you would respect, are going to do a great job, but you're not sure you're going to like them. But I'm going to sell my house for a lot of money. Great. You can get the other guys who are a bit sleepy and a bit posh, and they're nice, but are they effective? So there's a great bit big in the middle where they're really nice people and they're effective.
So a lot of the people that listen to this or watch this, watch it, will be smaller independent estate agents. I'm sure you've met lots of them over the years. I've met lots of them over the years, and a lot of them struggle with what I would say they struggle with the differentiation between the loyalty to their staff and what they need from their staff, and that hard process that you made it sound easy. I went into Marsh and Parsons. I got rid of all of their staff. There were only 7 left. It's not easy for somebody to do that. You have to do it.
Different times. Don't forget, it was 2005.
Sure, but even so, it's not like it isn't a heavy burden. It's not like you go in blasé. I don't care about these people. I'll just fire them. But you had to do it. So for the people that are running small businesses, often I ask them, like, if you looked at all of your team, would you re-employ all of them tomorrow? And most people will say no. And I think to myself, but they're still working for you. So how do you find that line of creating a company whereby, yes, this is a cult, we want people to work here and work passionately and go above and beyond, but I also want them to understand that this is about outcomes. If you were speaking to a small business that's sitting there thinking like, we have some, they're not great, but I couldn't get rid of them. What do you say to that?
Well, it's a tricky one because, it depends what you want out of life. If you want to sort of drift along, and there's nothing wrong with drifting along, by the way, but I was never a drifter. You're either a sort of guy a person that wants to, have a nice life and not work that hard, but, do okay and pay the bills and have a couple of holidays. That's fine. Then put up with those people. But if you want to create something, then you cannot put up with people that shouldn't be there. And I made myself sound like a tyrant a moment ago, and I'm really not a tyrant. I loathe firing people. I've had enormous amounts of practice at it, sadly, because if you hire in the volumes that I did, you have to fire in the volumes because you take a chance on people. So one of John's favorite expressions was never move a problem. So many people say he's not very good there, but let's try him there. That is not always, that is rarely going to work. So the way I looked at it is this is going to sound crass, but I really believe it, and I think I'm right. I'm doing them a favor because they're not being successful in a business that doesn't pay very well unless you're successful. So they are in the wrong job. And I can honestly say most of the people that I fired, senior people, after
Mm.
a month or two thanked me.
Yeah.
They really did.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. Like, if you're feeling that this person isn't really getting it and doing well, inevitably they can't be that happy. How can you be happy having someone come in and moan at you every day? It just can't
and
be a
they're
nice place to
exuding
be.
unhappiness to their clients, to their applicants, to anybody. And people want to deal with them.
I guess if I was playing devil's advocate, that small business owner would say, yeah, but what about the loyalty? What about the loyalty they've given us over the years? I can't just go in and say, get rid of them. Would you say it's a process? Rather, you don't just walk in and fire people. You go in and you say, look, the standards are changing. I really want you to come on this journey. Please come with me. Yeah.
I mean, I used to, when people came to me and said, Pete, I'm really unhappy about this and this, I used to say, why haven't you told me? I'm not a bloody mind reader, mate. Tell me, and I can do something about it. So you have to give extremely, I'm going to say blunt, but you're blunt, feedback to people when their behavior is not good enough. I listened to your book, which was very good, by the way, and you said when you started the business, you had PlayStations, and then everyone was happy and they're sitting around playing PlayStations, but they'd bugger off home at 5:30. Now, that is not, as you quickly found out, a culture. No. That's a holiday camp.
Exactly. The culture is we get the work done, and we don't care how long it takes us to do it.
Yeah.
But I might play the PlayStation.
Fine.
But but you can judge me by my outcomes. Not my output. It doesn't matter to me. I know. We'll probably get onto the subject of phone calls, and I think we actually probably generally agree on them, although it may not seem that way to begin with. But you can't tell me you did 100 phone calls and expect me to be happy about that. What I wanted was 4 sales.
Yeah.
I don't really give a shit about the 100 phone calls. I wanted 4 sales. So I'm interested in the outcomes, not the output. And that's what I eventually realized the culture was all about. It wasn't about me, like as you rightly say, it wasn't about me going, you know what? I've seen these Google offices. They have bean bags, they have tellies, they have fridges, food. I'm going to get all of that. It's going to be great to work here. And people would come in for an interview and be like, wow, this would be a great place to work. And you'd be like, yeah, isn't it? And you'd almost convince them to work there. And eventually you get to the stage where you realize, like, no, I'm going to try my very best to get you not to work here. This is going to be super hard for you.
Absolutely.
Yes, there's a beanbag and a PlayStation. But if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'll fire you in a week.
Yep. and I think, it's much more difficult with the current generation that have come through, are now coming through. In my view, they think the world owes them a living. And when they get into the real world, they're going to have a massive shock if and when I saw unemployment went up slightly yesterday in the figures. We've got basically full employment or very little unemployment. When that gets tough, people are going to have to start going back to the office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
I am a big fan, it won't surprise you because I'm older, of especially as in a team environment, being in the office. I think it's absolutely essential. And I think for salespeople, I'm not talking just estate agents, salespeople, to be in their third bedroom looking at a wall and doing a sale and looking at yay.
Yeah.
It's just depressing and soul destroying and not a learning process at all. So I said to my son, who's in recruitment actually, he works 4 days a week in the office. I said, get in there another 5th. Get in there. I don't care if there's no one else there, you should get in there. 1, it does your mental health good, makes you get up and go. And 2, if I was your boss, I'd notice.
Yeah, it's interesting because I probably agree with you there on the sales, certainly on the sales side of things, maybe even on other parts of the business as well, certainly when it comes to collaboration for creativity or anything like that. But the sales side of the things, you're spot on. There's the other flip side of it though, is that we've somehow drifted into a world whereby people think it's a big hassle to do one journey. Do you know what I mean? You say, oh, next week, Thursday, we're going to have a meeting here somewhere. No. Oh my God, that's going to take me an hour to get in and out. It's like, that was normal. Like, so there's something somewhere, I don't know what it is, but you're absolutely right, because it's okay if you've got, like what I found was that when we always had a reasonably relaxed working environment anyway, but when we went into COVID and everyone worked from home, it wasn't that much of an issue for us culture-wise, because it was the same team. Where the issue came was like when you hire a new person and they just work in their room and they don't get to listen to phone calls that other people are making. And when they make good phone calls, no one goes, that was brilliant. And when they make bad phone calls, no one goes, oh, you know what you said, you know what you could have done there. So all it becomes is a regular catch up where we go, you haven't done that much, have you? And they go, oh.
Yeah. And they'll go back to their second bedroom and fester.
There's no natural learning.
Exactly.
So
that's why it's such a problem.
Yeah,
a real problem.
I think you're probably right in terms of. I don't know if people will go back to the office 5 days, but we'll see. I guess
we'll see. I'm very old-fashioned when it comes to that.
Yeah. Okay. So culture-wise, we're saying. I don't know where I heard this once years ago, and I've used it ever since. That I say to my guys, we're not a family, we're a team. Think of it like a Premier League football team. If you're my striker and you're scoring goals, you're staying in the team. And if you're not scoring goals, I'm getting a new striker. Right?
It's life.
Like my brother, I can't get rid of him. He's my brother. This isn't a family. This is a team.
All right.
And you're saying basically that's the kind of culture that you believe in that to drive a business forward, right? So that's the culture side of things. If someone wants a high-performing business, they need to set their expectations a little bit higher with their staff, perhaps. What else do you think are some of the things that you've seen over the years that you considered to be milestones of change, if that makes sense? You know, whereby like you took over Foxtons at 10 million turnover, I think, if I remember rightly, and it went to 40. Now, when you took over at 10, you may have had ambitions to take it to 40, but you couldn't have known you were going to take it to 40.
No.
But at 40, you could look back and go, well, the milestones that made that happen were probably this, and this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one, and I alluded to it, is time management.
Okay.
You know, when I ran an office, I would literally get in at 8:15, and I'd say, "Morning, guys. How you doing? Right, let's go through the instructions yesterday. 9:10. Right, go and do deals. Go and phone people and show properties, and I'll see you back here at 7:00 tonight." You know,
as opposed to what's the other option?
Okay, the other option is right. This morning, from 9 till 12, you're on the phone. What a salespeople will do, he'll make himself, herself, whatever, an appointment at 10 o'clock. They'll get in at 9:15, have the meeting. 9:15, they finish. Well, I've got an appointment in 45 minutes. I know. I'll get a cup of coffee. Finish his coffee. I get the keys ready. So nothing happens, and you get sort of anchors in the day when nothing happens. Yeah. So the structure I know works. And especially in a business like Foxtons, which was huge, I had 550 instructions in South Ken and like 25 negotiators. It was a different market. Is 9 till 12 call out. You're not allowed to leave your desk. You're not allowed to go and show people properties at all. 12 till 2, go and show properties. 2 till 4, more call out or file check on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
4 till 8, show properties.
Yeah, I love that.
10 a day. And it was an incredibly simple structure, which was unbelievably difficult, onerous to introduce to a business where everyone had been doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Exactly what they wanted. And this was the criticism: we're being treated like children. But being treated like children increased the company and their income from 10 to 40 million.
Yeah.
It works.
And I suppose I would argue, well, you're not being treated like children, because during that period of time, you can do that. You can choose how you're going to work. But what I'm saying is that in this period of time, this is what you're doing, and goes back to outcomes over output, right? So what I'm saying to you is that I'm giving you the structure.
Yep.
And at the end of the month or the week, this is the target I want you to have hit. Now, if I work in Foxtons, actually, this will be an interesting question.
Wouldn't be the end of the month, by the way. It's too long.
Okay, end of the
week.
End of the week. This is going to be an interesting question, right? So, let's say I work in Foxtons or Marsh Parsons, and this is the structure from 9 till 12. We're doing call-outs, Mark, because we're trying to get new instructions, or we're trying to get viewings. Trying to get viewings.
I have a separate team on instructions.
And my target for the week is
10 a day.
10 a day, so 50 for the week. Okay.
50.
70, 60 for the week. 60 for the week. Okay, so, and I come in and I've got my own way of working, right? Which you think to yourself like, problem, right? But I get my 10 viewings in 10 minutes.
No, you wouldn't be allowed out. There has to be a structure. And I had that many times.
Yeah.
And also it enables you to be in a less buoyant market, which obviously we've been through loads. It enables you to own the relationship with the applicant, because you'll call the applicant up and say, great, I want to see it at 11 o'clock this morning. I'm really sorry, I'm busy at 11. I'm busy at 12. I could fit you in at 1.
Yeah.
Or 4:30.
Yeah, no,
You've got nothing in your diary, by the way.
No, I love that.
So you're owning it. You're not just some monkey that is going to bloody drop everything to go and do a viewing.
Of course, that's crazy.
You're controlling it.
But what I mean is, I book my 10 viewings in the first hour.
Fine, which is your business. I'm paying you 10 grand plus commission. Book 20, book 30. I don't care how many you book.
Yeah,
that's a minimum.
Yeah, but if I say I've done my 10, and let's say. I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
No is the answer.
Yeah.
You cannot have different regimes for different people. You just can't do it.
So yours is switching more towards output rather than outcome.
Well, one starts with the first. You're certainly not going to do a sale if you don't get the appointment.
No, but I've got my appointments that I needed.
Do more.
But if I carry on for the next 4 hours and I don't get any more, that's okay, because I tried.
You're still speaking to people.
Yeah.
You're still creating relationships. You're still, I've heard from this guy. I've heard from Mark 3 times this week. He's fantastic.
Yeah. Or not.
He's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Or possibly not. I mean, there's a balance, isn't there?
Because Well, I think we're sort of slightly in a rabbit hole there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think culturally you cannot say he's really good. He can do what he likes.
No, I don't think he can do what he likes. I agree with that. Like, this is the structure, guys. Like, from 9 till 12, we're trying to get viewings. Like, that's what we're trying to do. Now,
by the way, at M&P, it wasn't 9 till 12. It was 9 till 11. Because I didn't have anything like as many instructions.
Yeah.
So if you've got 10 instructions, there's no point having a negotiator sitting there calling out 10 instructions. So it's 9:30 till 10.
Yeah.
But they're all in the office, all calling out at the same time.
Just create that buzz and get everybody doing
noise,
the same thing, and it becomes normal for everybody, right?
Yeah. It's how we work.
I think I actually believe that we're on the same page. It's just that I'm looking down the tunnel of certain technologies, and you're looking down the tunnel of your experience, and your experience is that technology wasn't around when that experience happened.
What technology specifically?
Well, I'm looking at the idea of, we're living in a world whereby I don't really need an estate agent to phone me up about anything, to be honest. I don't really need it. I can go on Rightmove, I can see the properties. He might want to phone me up, right? But as the end user, I don't really need it.
That's not important to an estate agent, is it? At all.
It's not important to some estate agents, but to me it might be important. Like, if I get a phone call from an estate agent, maybe not the estate agents that have trained under you, but generally, if I get a phone call from an estate agent, they say weird, pointless shit to me.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? They phone me and they go, "Hello, Mark," and I go, "Hello, you're an unrecognised number. Sorry, who are you?" "It's John here from estate agents." "Oh, hello, John. You still looking for a, 4-bed house?" "Yeah. What you got?" "Nothing." "I just wanted to know if you're still looking."
Oh,
it's
God,
like,
that's awful.
Why the fuck have you phoned me, John?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to know if you still want to be on the database.
Being shitty estate agents and good estate
But
agents.
then there's the other ones who go, "Got this new instruction, think you might like it, da 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 da." I'm like, "Is it the one you put on Rightmove 2 weeks ago?" "Yes, I've seen it. I'm not interested."
You should be, because bang.
Yeah, I should be, because of da 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 da.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
It doesn't have a third bedroom. It does. It's being used as a study, and we've misdescribed it in the details.
Right.
That's what it's all about. And that's why they need to call.
And that's fine. But an easier way for them to work and get to their end result would be, I put this property live on our system. It matched with our people, And there may be some people, I get it, buyers are liars and all of that sort of stuff, but it matched with our people. And those people, 30 of them went into the details. Shall we speak to those 30 first?
Sure.
We speak to those 30, we booked 20 viewings.
Great.
Now, do I need to book more viewings on that property? I've got 20 lined up.
Probably not.
So I can move on to the next property and I can do the same thing, right? And this is where I'm picturing, I'm in your 9 till 11 phone outs, and I've got that technology and I'm working that way. Within an hour, I've booked 20 viewings.
Don't forget, I always pay on personal commission.
Yeah.
So you've got someone sitting next to you who hasn't booked 30, and he or she is wanting to sell that to their applicant.
Yeah.
Because other than that, they're not going to get paid a penny.
I get it, but from the end user's point of view,
who's the end user?
The buyer, let's say.
Okay.
From the buyer's point of view, like, we've got enough viewings on this house probably to sell it now, or to find out that it's overpriced.
Sorry, the buyer or the seller?
As an agent, we've got 20 viewings now booked on this property, and so we're quite likely to sell this property if it's not overvalued. But if it were, we probably wouldn't have 20 viewings booked on it. And they were the 20 people that all looked at it when it was sent to everybody. The other 500 that it was sent to in our database weren't even interested in clicking in it. Are we going to really now phone all those people just because we've still got another hour left of the phone out?
Well, probably.
Or can we do something more productive?
Well, those 500 have got properties to sell.
I've got that as well somewhere else. That's what I was going to move on to. Can I move on to, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. This is 2 hours. We're on the phones, guys. You need to be booking viewings. You need to be getting me listings. You need to be getting me mortgage appointments.
I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be doing just listings.
Just
for
listings.
that 2 hours.
Right.
Just listings. Focus. Absolute focus on just listings. But, at Foxtons, we started it very, very, very early, like 25 years ago, of what we call client services.
Yeah.
Which is a whole separate department of people just following up on data.
Yeah.
I mean, your idea about big data was John's idea 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And as I said, he was a genius, an iconoclast, but a genius. And he saw that very, very, very early on. And that's why Foxtons has the most amounts of data of any estate agent in London. It is unbelievable. And we've got 85 people sitting in Chiswick Park trawling through it. And I don't think it's enough just to send an email out and hope someone clicks on it. I think there is real value, and it's this little bit of the top value of someone calling up and saying, you had a valuation two years ago. Oh, yeah, I'm just thinking about selling, rather than receive an email. No. That's what that's about, and it's hugely successful.
Yeah, I get it. I do get it. It's just there's absolutely you need to make the phone calls. Google, they own the internet and they've got a massive sales team making phone calls. So, clearly you need to make the phone calls. But they have the analytical data that tells them who to call.
Sure, definitely.
Because, if I've got a data...
And we've got that.
Foxtons have got this huge database, all these people that have potentially got houses to sell. Yeah. Therefore, we can create content and we can make sure they see it in social and on email, and this content the titles of this content will lead us to the gold. If you're thinking of selling before summer 2024, you might want to know this.
Yep.
Now I've got 5,000 people that I can go, okay,
Brilliant.
These people they're somewhere in that, rather than, okay, there's 500,000 people in this database, let's go.
We violently agree. We're violently agreeing. I get it. And in fact, one of my little investments is exactly that.
Awesome.
It's actually for the mortgage industry, which is identifying the people at the pointy bit of the pyramid.
Yeah.
These guys who is really worth calling, as opposed to trawling through 2,000 people that probably don't want to hear from you.
Absolutely. Because so often I talk to agents about data and they go, we've got tons of it. And you go, well, what have you got? We've got names, email addresses.
What are you doing with it?
That doesn't mean anything, And I think it's the word data is easily misunderstood in a estate agency, because it's not, data isn't names and email addresses. Like, I could buy that off of a list somewhere.
Yeah.
It's what are those people doing? Like, have you got the data of everyone in your area that has a house to sell that is currently on the internet looking at property? Because that would make your life a hell of a lot easier, right?
Obviously, that's gold dust, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It's fantastic. But most agents won't. One, they won't do it, and two, they're probably interested, but
no. The bar's
but only
low
just.
enough that they don't need it.
No.
That's the problem, I think, is that, like, you know, before we started recording, we were talking about, you know, the recent acquisition of On the Market and what will happen with that. And the public don't, at this point, need the technology to be superly different to what Rightmove does. The public are reasonably happy with the way it works. And I think, in a way, a estate agency is kind of similar in the sense that sometimes, as a company, we might sit there and say, why are all estate agents not using this? It's mental. And of course we would think that, but I often say, well, the truth is, technically they don't need it. Technically, I can open an estate agency in my bedroom and make a living. You know,
most aren't very good.
It depends on what, like you said at the beginning, are you trying to build an empire? Are you trying to build a lifestyle business? Or are you just want to sell a few houses? From your perspective then, where do you see the future of estate agency going, in the sense that we know what works, we know what has worked, you know better than anybody what has worked over the last 20, 30 years, 40 years, whatever it might be. But let's just think about a crazy future, one that whereby our industry does get a little bit disrupted. Do you have any ideas on that, or is it too crazy?
I think the disruptors the disrupted you all talk about in your book are very, very, very different to estate agents. They're selling very minor things. They're selling products, and agents aren't selling products. They are selling services and lifestyle and big bucks, big money. I remember in 2000, John Hunt and I went to something called the Inman Conference in San Francisco, which is all about tech. And it was literally the start of the internet. And we were shit scared. We thought it was going to eat us alive. But actually, cutting a long story short, what we did was make use of that and got it as a tool. And I think machine learning, AI, there's all sorts of stuff about it at the moment. We will make use of that. Rather, like you said a moment ago, if you can get hold of the people, the 15 people who have clicked the link, spent at least 5 minutes looking at it, they need a call. So we can make use of that. I think the biggest thing that will have to change, I think, but I've been saying it for a long time, is the fees. You know, we put up with very, very poor quality of people in most estate agents because, frankly, they don't earn a lot of money. And in most cases, they haven't got the ability to earn a lot of money because, and only because, the bosses of the business charge 1%.
Yeah.
And therefore, however good you are, you're really not going to earn that much money.
No.
So I think the fee thing, and I have a group on the Property Academy, and I, as it won't surprise you, I bang on about it the whole time. And a couple of them have started it, and they are, I won't tell you who they are, but they have been amazed at how relatively simple it's been to increase the fees.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a shitty little agent closing at 4 PM and you know your office looks like crap, then you're not going to be able to raise your fees. If you're a good agent doing a great service in a community, you can absolutely raise your fees. And the way I do it, I would tell them that they cannot charge less than 1.5% or 1.25%, whatever you want, and then raise it up. But if you give them absolute uniformity of order, and it is an order, don't come back at 1.25% because I'm going to turn it down. It empowers them. I know it sounds tough, but it empowers them not to go soft because they want to be paid. Above all, they want to be paid.
Yeah.
And if they haven't got if you don't buy a ticket, you can't win a prize. That's another way of looking at it. It's not the way I think it should work, because as we've seen, fees have just gone down and down and down and down and down. And there was a story in the press recently, in the trade press. We are the lowest fees in the world. We have been for many, 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 many years. It is shockingly bad, and we should be ashamed of ourselves.
I completely agree with you, and I've experienced the same thing with agents whereby they've told me how incredibly easy it actually was for them to change fees and how big an impact it had on their life. So I totally agree with you. I'm just going to sort of try and talk from their perspective, those people that are listening, you know, and you'll have heard this many times as I have. You don't understand how our area works. It's all right for you in Kensington.
It's bullshit.
But here, people are charging 250 quid. I'm already the most expensive. So don't care about the competition. You don't care what the competition are charging. It's irrelevant.
As I said, you can't give a shit service and expect a big fee. You've got to walk the,
There's got to be a reason, right?
Yeah.
And that reason ultimately is like, I'll get you the most money in the shortest amount of time that it's possible to get the most money, not necessarily the shortest amount of time to sell your house. I'll get you the most money in the shortest amount of time with the best service.
Yeah.
And if you feel like, if you're an estate agent and you genuinely feel like that is true, then you should be happy to say no to somebody who's like,
exactly.
Well, I'll only pay $1,000. It's like, well, you go for it.
Go for it, absolutely. Yeah, if you want the cheap agent, I'm not a discount agent. John McGrath used to end his first statement as he went into a property is, so why have you invited McGrath in? Get them to sell to you. Oh, I've heard such great things about you. Yeah. Or, they won't say you're the cheapest. And if they do, they're probably wrong because you probably won't be.
I've got a bit of a theory on that, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on it, like just before we sort of try and wrap it up, which is that John McGrath could do that, Marsh and Parsons can do that, and Foxtons can do that, and certainly some independent agents can do that as well, if they take their marketing a bit more seriously. What a lot of agents do is they don't do very much marketing at all. Therefore, the person hasn't really been influenced on getting them in. And if they were to walk in and say that, the person would go, to be honest, I've never even really heard of you. I looked for 3 estate agents. And that's where it suddenly goes wrong. The person's got to almost want you before they book the valuation.
Yeah, it's not going to work every time, obviously.
Yeah,
and I think that's absolutely fair enough. And and I do hear that all the time that, Joe Bloggs down the road charges 250 quid and a bag of crisps.
Yeah.
It's not going to work every time. But hopefully Joe Bloggs won't be able to give the service that you can give or get the price that you can get.
So charge the extra money and invest the money back into giving a better service.
And if you've got, if your details look crap and the boards look crap, it has to be just so. I used to travel around every single Foxtons office.
Yeah.
And, if I'd turn up and there was rubbish on the street outside, I'd pick it up.
Yeah.
If there was something on the window, I'd rub it off or get someone to rub it off. Yeah. I would, it has to be just so. If you put up with things, we used to have a board run every week. They managers would get in the car, and if a board was crooked or dirty, call up, get it changed, because it has to be just so.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people will see they don't care.
Yeah, it's from the top to the bottom, absolutely. I love that. Okay, so if anyone is listening to this and they think to themselves, yes, but, or I wish you'd asked this or whatever. Is there a place that someone can sort of reach out? You mentioned about your property academy group or something like that. Is there places where people could, like, I don't know, where do you bother with social media? Do you ever answer any of those messages? Or
I bother with LinkedIn a bit, but I'm not big on social media at all. I used to be.
Yeah.
I used to be quite big on Twitter. Not big. I used to take it. Twitter's a poisonous hole.
Yeah.
Is X now, I know, but so it did my mental health a lot of good coming off that, I'll tell you.
Sure.
But obviously I'm out of the front line now, so I don't have to be on it. But LinkedIn, I suppose, is the only place. What I don't want to do is be overrun with it, but I am interested in business.
Yeah.
I love business. I've lived and breathed this business, estate agency, for 35, nearly 40 years, believe it or not. So I love sort of not getting too much involved, but I don't mind giving a little bit of advice every now and again. Let's say that.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this Estate Agency X podcast. Can you make sure that you're actually subscribed to this podcast channel if you liked the content? It helps us massively to get better guests, and it just helps us generally. So you might think you're subscribed, but just have a double check, whatever your podcast platform of preference is, that you're actually subscribed, and then that way we can continue to grow the channel and get better and better guests for you.